Here we are. First off, greetings from Hamburg, Germany. I'm Andreas Fessler, the Chief Business Officer and Director of apoQlar USA. I'm located in Hamburg from Miami originally, and here with me today, we actually have an absolute thought leader in XR technologies and one of our leading medical advisors also in the US. Robert, do you want to say a few words to yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm a pediatric heart surgeon here at Nicklaus Children's Hospital in Miami, Florida. I run the Cardiovascular Surgery Advanced Projects Laboratory. We've been 3D printing since 2015 involved, and we immediately started looking for other technology advantages, like in XR specifically. Installed our first mixed reality system in 2018. We've been working with apoQlar since 2020. I don't know about thought leader, but we're just trying to revolutionize medicine. That's what we're trying to do. Take better care of our patients.
Yeah, thank you. And you put it so eloquently in the video that Dr. Rue showed for us. And today we're covering the topic of the medical metaverse in practice today. And you know, when we were initially asked about the topic that we want to cover, we quickly jumped at the chance to cover this metaverse continuum topic. You know, it's become such a buzzword, if you will, or so commonplace, but it hasn't gained this ubiquitous understanding of really what it means, especially kind of where it fits into the medical continuum. And that's what we're going to be covering today. So I'll be walking you briefly through a first couple slides about ourselves and walking you through a few of the cases that we have with Nicklaus Children's Hospital down in Miami, Florida, and having a back and forth fireside. So a little bit about apoQlar. We're oriented on a pretty global scale. We have our headquarters here in Hamburg, Germany, in Poland, in Singapore for our APAC expansion, in Miami, most recently for our USA expansion, and we're launching an office in New Delhi, India, by the end of this month. So we're founded in 2017, really off the backs of the release of the Microsoft HoloLens 1. So when it first emerged for us, we really saw this opportunity and this potential in medicine, and really just stuck to it and started to develop ultimately. And since that time, we've gained EU and Singapore medical certifications, so CE Class 1 and HSA Class A for surgical planning, so the 3D visualization of DICOM data in the medical metaverse or mixed reality for pre-operative planning. We're ISO 13485 certified, 21 CFRA 20 for the FDA process, and that's what we're currently pursuing as we speak. So we're pursuing the FDA 510K route for the 3D visualization of DICOM data for preoperative planning, and that is currently in the works. So we also have a pretty global current customer base, everywhere from Australia to Canada, Miami, and everything in between. So we're in about 35 different hospitals, 4 medical schools, and 3 med device companies. And we have a global medical advisory board. So we're at about 35 or 36 medical advisors with Dr. Hannan here as our lead US advisor. And that's really covering almost all medical specialties within the surgical realm and over 10 different countries. And we took this global approach because we're really going after a global problem. And that's, you can't plan for what you can't see as a surgeon, and you have limited support for surgical planning. And on a global scale, 5 billion people don't have access to safe and affordable surgical care. And even on top of that, surgery plus 30 days counts as the 3rd leading cause of death. That's more than HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. And that's where we're innovating. So we tackle it on 2 big fronts. That's clinical and education for the future doctors. So we cover surgical planning. So we're medical field agnostic, covering neuro, cardiology, cardiovascular surgery, visceral surgery, everything in between. And we enable automatic 3D visualization of data. So the second part is remote medical assistance. So being able to reduce the distance between physicians on a global scale or even intra-health system has been very, very impactful. The third is surgical training guides. So being able to increase access to specialized care or specialized surgical planning by simply having a HoloLens on, being on a medically certified platform in the future, of course, and being able to have this library of very, very complicated procedures step by step on how to do it in a training environment to really improve that accessibility and care delivery. And the fourth is patient education. Dr. Ru, thank you again for your session earlier and walking us through the patient education case. And we'll be covering something similar as well for our end. On the education side, we also cover 4 big areas. And again, this is what we're in practice with today, and in the future is what we've had pipelined. So here we have applications within the cadaver anatomy labs, experiential lesson plans and education guides, being able to have remote lectures. And of course, during COVID, it was imperative to have a high quality of education for medical students in a very, very difficult time. And the fourth is actually creating this platform of medical collaboration between students, professors, and physicians in industry to really guide and drive collaboration, exchange of ideas and knowledge. And on top of that, we've actually created 3 centers of excellence alongside the HoloMedicine Association. So the first of which was at the NUHS in Singapore, where we initially came in with an education program with a few devices, and now we've scaled across the entire health system and created a dedicated extended reality, specifically mixed reality medical program, and again covering almost all facets of medical divisions. So we also have the PS Hospital in Oldenburg, and there we have kind of a zoomed in focus on visceral surgery and specifically hepatectomies. So we recently had a case featured in German television about a patient who presented with metastases in the liver, and she was actually considered palliative. And her son didn't accept that answer, and he actually went and kind of approached several surgeons and institutions to figure out a way to have a surgery that with a positive outcome. And they stumbled upon PS Hospital in Oldenburg. And once the surgeons were able to visualize the DICOM data in 3D alongside, traditional imaging methodologies, she was actually able to be saved, and she's living today. So that just speaks to the power of, being able to visualize anatomy and complex anatomy and structures in 3D. And then, of course, we have Nicklaus Children's Hospital, and today Dr. Hannan is with us, where we're really driving on 2 fronts in the current state of our U.S. expansion. That's patient education, medical education, and running a lot of research and development projects within medical mixed reality. And so, Dr. Hannan put this so eloquently. I'll read it briefly, and it's mixed reality is going to revolutionize not only healthcare, but it's going to revolutionize how we work together over distance and how we work together over time. Dr. Hannan, thank you again for joining us today. I would love to kind of first pick your brain and hear your thoughts about what this quote, when you initially said it, meant to you.
Well, thank you, Andreas, and I appreciate everyone's time and attention today. I hope my microphone was muted when my thoughts on the difficulty of signing in were revealed in my former commercial fisherman's vocabulary. The goal of the Cardiovascular Surgery Advanced Projects Laboratory at Nicklaus Children's Hospital is to imagine, innovate, inspire, impact patients and families for the course of a lifetime, and to reach those left behind by the diagnosis of inoperable or untreatable, by the diagnosis of mental illness, behavioral health, by the diagnosis of behavioral differences. No parent wants to hear their child is inoperable or untreatable. No parent wants to hear their child has a virtually untreatable condition that irresolvable, rather, like autism or behavioral health. And we come from a very specific place that we're surgeons, so we need to do. And we're also from a pediatric perspective and have a different population than 95% of the healthcare given in the United States, at least, the pediatric perspective. And that creates a very unique ecosystem for us. And the ecosystem is a lethal one. 10% of neonates, children under 30 days of age who have open heart surgery, die. And the only current way to really impact that number is to not operate on sick patients in addition to improving quality. So that ecosystem, just like any ecosystem, depends on multiple things, and nobody survives in a hostile ecosystem by themselves. And that's why we love working with industry. Our ecosystem rests on making better decisions, doing better operations, providing better care. And none of that is new. As pediatric cardiac surgeons, when we do an MRI on a baby, we put that baby to sleep. We give them general anesthesia. What can we then do with that data, that DICOM data? We can print 3D models of it. We can put it in mixed reality or virtual reality in STL files, VRML files, OBJ files, and look at it and manipulate it in virtually real time and send it over distance. We can do, with our partners in ANSYS, computational fluid dynamics and finite element analysis on the data itself to try to help us plan operations. All that to give our patients better care, the why. I think mixed reality, I'm going to quote Ken Olson, the famous head of the Digital Equipment Corporation in 1975, nobody needs a home computer. Well, in 1975, nobody needed a 1975 home computer. 5 years later, IBM revolutionized the computer world with the IBM PC from right down here in South Florida in Boca Raton. And within a couple of years, every scientist, every engineer, everyone who wrote had an IBM PC on their desk. And a couple of years later, the Microsoft guys started coming around with the graphical user interface on compact portable computers the size of rollerboards. So the future of mixed reality, I think, is as uncertain as the future of the home computer in 1975. And we want to participate in that, and we want to help guide that. So, Andreas, there it is in a nutshell.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think medical mixed reality is really pursuing almost this unknown unknown. It's a market that really only existed, if you want to be bullish, 5 years ago to this extent, but really seeing tremendous innovation and traction just in a couple of years, since the HoloLens 2 was released as well. So it's truly an open sea of capabilities, and now it's this race and this collaboration with industry and medical community in driving these solutions. So on the next slide, I'm going to show a video of one of the projects that we were engaged with, specifically medical education. So I'll give this a play and would love to hear your thoughts afterwards.
Using the HoloLens, being able to interact with it, I think is really great.
I see all the dots. Maybe they're not connected yet, but all the dots are there, and I can't wait to see where it will be when I'm eventually teaching, years from now.
It's going to revolutionize not only healthcare, but it's going to revolutionize how we work together over distance, how we work together over time. We started looking for a virtual reality, augmented reality, now mixed reality solution. Found a wonderful vendor who's a full partner of Microsoft, VSI apoQlar in Germany, who has a fantastic mixed reality solution.
We wanted to have something that the students at the cadaver lab could really utilize to help them learn structural relationships.
With the augmented reality, with the HoloLens, it was just if I had that on at the same time I was with the donor body, I could look to the side, pull up something and just okay, I'm looking for this artery, tracking it here, looking back at the heart and finding it there.
Oh, okay. Oh my God. This is incredible. I put on the HoloLens and I'm able to see the CT scan where I can walk into it and I can see all the structures coming along. And then on this other side, I have this 3D model of the heart, which I can blow it up and almost feel like I'm standing inside the left ventricle, or I can walk around it and point out all the structures.
Is that the left
I think it's opening into the aorta, and that's arching.
Yeah, arching.
Because that's the left atrium, and that's my pulmonic three cusps. Anterior,
Left,
right and left. Yeah.
Using the HoloLens, being able to interact with it instead of, reading a textbook and only seeing one view, being able to walk around and see it from different views, I think is really great. And it's something that, as future doctors, if you're doing surgery or something like that, you have to be able to kind of look at the heart from different views.
I think this is incredible. I think this is like a
awesome.
Great learning tool.
It really
Especially with all the coronary arteries and sinuses.
Yeah.
Those are hard sometimes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Just the applications for medicine, whether it's like telemedicine or just like teaching, it's like that kind of next step where you're augmenting not just reality, but like what it means to practice medicine, to be in healthcare. To me, that's like the most cool part about HoloLens.
How genuine these young men and young women are, how genuine their interest is, how genuine their desire to be good doctors is, their desire to learn. So it's really a true privilege for me to interact with them and their energy and their interest and their curiosity.
That was a collaborative project that we did with the University of Florida anatomy department, teaching medical students cardiac anatomy using digital anatomy models graciously donated by Stratasys, the HoloLens, all the connectivity, et cetera. And I think the students said it better than I could ever say it. Andreas?
Yeah, no, thank you. A question that comes to mind as we're going through that, right? You're seeing 3D DICOMs, right? CT scans, you're seeing STL files. What's the utility from a clinician standpoint, as well as an education standpoint, when you're combining all these different data sources together?
Well, that's a great question, and we're absolute believers and proselytizers and missionaries for the synergy between all these technologies to make better decisions, to have better informed patients, to have better consent. And, obviously, man's, greatest tool, his opposed thumb hand with millions of sensors in each fingertip, gives what the, $20 word from Stratasys, stereognosis, touch, and allows us to visualize or to feel in 3 dimensions. And there's no substitute for saying, well, that vessel's too small to sew, or we can actually make it. We can bring point A to point B, and that's how we stopped counting at a dozen patients that have been turned down other places for surgery simply because we printed a 3D model. But the idea of 3D visualization is not new. And here one of our inspirations, Rembrandt, and this is one of over 40 self-portraits that Rembrandt painted. And his use of light to create a 3-dimensional effect is extremely dramatic. And in addition, the self-portrait part was another big part of our program, is that he didn't have to hire a model. And so it was very parsimonious in his money. And he never had to cancel the model because the sun wasn't shining in Amsterdam, which I don't think it shines too much there. People started using 3D as soon as they started scratching drawings in the ground. Cave paintings used red to bring objects to the foreground. This is a stereoscopic image of Inuit girls in Greenland. The stereoscopic camera was invented very shortly after Louis Daguerre invented the camera. We live in a 3D world, and as predators, as hunters, the ability to see in 3D, the ability to have stereo hearing are all part of our survival package in that ecosystem of the predator. in the ecosystem of medical decision-making and taking care of patients, being able to see, touch, feel in 3D is incredibly valuable and helps us make decisions. The better decisions we make, the better data we have, the better we interpret the data, the better our patients are going to do.
Yeah. And, this is one of those technologies that if you have never had a HoloLens on before and actually experience it for yourself, it's very difficult to already feel what that difference is. And being able to extrapolate data or requiring, with the cognitive load, to extrapolate data from a 2D complex image, into the real world, that's where visual gaps and knowledge gaps, lead to errors or adverse events. And this is really where the technology can be best applied as well. Then really quickly, if you were a medical student today, how would this technology impact you and guide your medical academic career?
Well, I think that your point about thinking in 3D and going in 3D, and it's not a technology that's widely available in medical schools or medical education or even in surgical decision making. But I think the ability to think in 3D certainly guides medical students into different choices of subspecialties, and the ability to visualize in 3D, and possibly most importantly, having an open mind to innovation. And wanting to participate in innovation and help steer the ship of where all this really cool technology, how are we going to end up actually using it to impact and empower patients over the course of a lifetime?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I would love to bring up another video and project that we've been working on in terms of patient education. Perhaps you want to say a few words to the Rose-Marie case before I play for the audience.
Rose-Marie was a little 13-year-old girl who emigrated here from Haiti to be with her father and her aunt, and ended up just on a routine evaluation into pediatricians, had a very unusual ruptured sinus of Valsalva aneurysm. And I think the take-home points from the video are, not only did it help us visualize in 3D visually, in the models, the operable models helped us actually design the operation. But you can, number one, see how easily and fluently Rose-Marie put the headset on and knew what to do and knew how to use it. But when you look and watch the change in Rose-Marie from seeing her own anatomy to going to the operating room the next day, you can see the confidence that she had in her surgeons, the medical system, the institution, having grown exponentially simply because we showed her what she needed to have done.
Yeah. Let's walk through that.
We're here at Nicklaus Children's Hospital in the Heart Institute, and there's a little 13-year-old girl who arrived from Haiti a couple of years ago who was a very, very complicated lesion in her left ventricular outflow tract and aorta, a ruptured sinus of Valsalva into her left ventricle, which is extremely rare, and the anatomy is extremely complicated.
Are you Rose-Marie? Yeah. I'm your heart surgeon. I'm Dr. Burke. Nice to meet you. How you feeling? Yeah, I can imagine. Well, you're very beautiful. Nobody told me how pretty you were.
I don't think Rose-Marie understood what she had in terms of her heart problem until we gave her the model, until we showed her with the HoloLens exactly what the issue was. She's a very smart 13-year-old, beautiful little girl. She understood and understands why she needs open heart surgery now. And the surgeons understand better her very, very complicated anatomy.
I'm a little nervous, but at the same time not, because I know I'm in great hands and they're going to do a great job.
The entire team does whatever it takes to take care of these children and their families to the absolute best of their abilities. And I think that shows in what we did today, why we form industry partnerships, why we're partnered with Stratasys for the 3D printed models, why we're partnered with VSI, apoQlar, and Microsoft for the HoloLens holographic 3D technology. I don't think anybody else in the world sees the synergy between these two technologies, the imagination and innovation and transformation that defines the Nicklaus Children's Heart Institute that we've shown for the past over 25 years.
I think is one of the defining aspects of the care that we give to these children and to their families.
Yeah, of course, this video had to be cut down a little bit for the nature of today's session, given time constraints. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on really what the most challenging aspect is of educating patients on upcoming procedures and what this technology really does for them.
Well, you know, the most challenging aspect of the entire program is not educating patients. Once we put a model in their hands and the hologram, let them see the hologram, they understand immediately. It's the, how should we say, the missionary work of getting physicians, administrators bought in to the fact that they can actually improve their outcomes, improve their care using this new technology. And I think that people who have tried to institute programs like this, when I say that, they always nod their heads vigorously. And it's not resistance to change. It's just an untested new technology. And people have a hard time understanding until they actually have a use case that they personally think has been useful to them. And I think, for instance, the osteosarcoma use case, convinced our chief of neurosurgery that this was a potentially useful and helpful technology. And so the challenge is, I'm thinking of a well-known internet reviewer who, under good, bad, whatever on bad, will write not free. The challenge is the technology is not free. The technology at the HoloLens Association, the guys from the National Health Service in England all have the same question: how are we going to pay for this? We're privileged at Nicklaus Children's, between the institution and the foundation. The foundation's paid for all the hardware, and the institution supported us tremendously to be able to do this. But none of it's paid for by insurance, and it's all simple dedication to improving healthcare.
Yeah, and that's where we want to go, right? From the cycle of developing, from the current state of tech and the overall environment in which we play as a medical device company. It's developing daily, monthly, and I think from our end, we're really excited on where that ecosystem will be in just even a year's time from now. So I'll play a video in the background for some visuals, but I would love to hear your thoughts on, if there are any specific medical applications within, the medical mixed reality realm that you're especially interested in.
Well, to expand the topic just a little bit, we have multiple research interests in the Advanced Projects Laboratory. And when we talk about reaching those left behind, the potentials for remote care are, in this technology, extraordinarily rich. The potentials for some type of metaverse in care, and what role we play in that. And we're very supportive and very interested in working with our palliative care team in children who are diagnosed as terminal, and supporting them through immersive technologies. Can we use that same technology to support patients with other conditions, like in pediatrics, behavioral health, which means psychiatric diseases? Can we support people with PTSD with immersive technology? And I think the other part that you're highlighting here with the slicer box is, can we improve speed and accuracy? Can a person reading a CT read it more accurately, read it faster wearing a HoloLens than looking at it on a 2D monitor? And the answer to all these questions is, I have no idea. But I do know that, you can either be waiting for the next chip, the 286 chip, the 386 chip. I'm not buying a laptop because the 486 chip is coming out. Or you can be involved in this technology, in this development, and helping drive the technology forward from the beginning. And that's that's our personality. We're not going to wait for the next version. We're going to participate today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're also approaching time. So I'd love to ask one final question. And, where do you see MR, XR technology looking like? What is it going to look like in the next 3 years and in 10 years?
Well, if it looks like anything, it's going to be easier to use. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be more fluid. When I think about what I've seen in heart surgery, 40 years ago at UC San Francisco, I saw the leading heart surgeon in the world pack a baby in ice to do open heart surgery. I think, 20 years later, you could easily read in the newspaper, no one needs a personal phone to walk around with a phone. That's way too much, way too many cell towers. How are we going to build that many cell towers? Well, and then we ended up with more computational power in our back pocket than in the entire United States in a matter of 20 or 30 years. It's going to be far simpler, far cheaper, far easier to use with far less technical support necessary, or it's going to die.
Yeah. So we were very excited from the apoQlar end. We work closely with a lot of health systems, medical schools, and we work very closely together. We're working on a 4D heart project at the moment. So from our end, we're very interested to see where it goes. I think the regulatory pathways and the reimbursement pathways are at a point where the technology can keep up and essentially abide by the rules. So with that, thank you for the time. Are there any questions that we can answer in the last few minutes?
Hi, Andreas. Welcome again, Dr. Hannan. I'm Sean from Microsoft, and on behalf of the company, thank you so much for sharing your story. Dr. David Rue, our Chief Medical Officer, actually shared Rory's story in his keynote. There are a few questions that came through, but one of the things I'd like to leave folks with is some of the folks watching might be considering, how do I get started with this? What's the best way to get started? Do you have any insights and advice that you'd like to share?
It's somewhat amorphous. You can always reach out to me. People can always reach out to me. All they've got to do is type in Nicklaus, Nicklaus, best golfer ever to live. One of the most gracious men I've ever met, Jack Nicklaus, Advanced Projects. We come right up, email me. I believe that this entire cycle, what I call the belief cycle, starts at the belief. And you believe that you can actually improve healthcare. And then the next step is the vision. What's your vision? Is it to improve surgery? Is it to improve radiology? And then the next step is obviously the hardest part, act, make it happen. But if you've done the first two steps adequately, it's a lot easier to find the money, to find the support. And then the final step, you saw a couple examples of that. You saw 3 examples of that. That's to articulate, to be able to share the vision of Roy, the vision of Rosemalie, the vision of the University of Florida students. So, there's so many use cases that are in use now and so many use cases that are undiscovered for me to say, well, if I was a radiologist and I was an interventional radiologist, I think about how mixed reality can help me put catheters into people's chests. If I was a diagnostic radiology, I'd say, boy, I'd love to try reading a CT scan in 3D rather than in 2D, and then do 10 and then publish it in, big scientific journal. How do you jump in the pool? Well, there's some people who, kind of walk in really slowly. And then if you understand the surgical mortality of frequently wrong, never uncertain, there you go. Just jump right in. So I think the answer is very individualized for individual users and individual places. But if you believe you can improve the care of your patients, I alluded to this. If you're putting a 3-year-old under general anesthesia to get an MRI, don't you owe it to that child to use that data as usefully as possible, to not only look at it, in a 1840s way, flat screen monitors are essentially Louis Daguerre in France, but to look at it in the best possible way, look at 3D data in 3D. So, and I view all of this really as a personal obligation.
Incredible. I love your focus on driving positive patient outcomes with the technology. And I appreciated you sharing the human side of actually helping, especially your younger patients, understand what's going on and being able to visualize that in multiple ways. Very good. I suspect we could talk another hour. I see we're close at time. Andreas, any final thoughts before we close out?
No, just from industry side, even though we'd like to consider ourselves really closely knit with the medical community, it really requires thought leaders on the medical side, on the technology side, and really drivers in-house to really want to adopt and break this out into different divisions. So if you have this feeling that this is something that speaks to you and you really would like to roll this out in your institution, having a close relationship with a tech provider on the back end is all the difference, because it is just at the very beginning of development, really, in this medical metaverse stage. So the constant feedback loop and close collaboration is critical. Yeah.
Excellent. I'd echo that. A great collaboration is what makes it successful. Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you so much, Dr. Hannan. I really appreciate your time. In a minute or so, the next session will be available, and you'll get to join that, and we'll start at 20 minutes past the hour. Thank you so much.
And Sean, thank you for setting this up. We're sorry we were a little late. Thanks to Dr. Rue for all the kind words, and thanks to all our friends at Microsoft. This is a second career for me, and one of the reasons I pursue it so vigorously is the great friends I make and the fun that I have in trying to revolutionize healthcare. So thanks to Kevin, my other friends at Microsoft, and my other friends in the industry. We can't do this alone.
Awesome. Great words to end by. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
See you in the next session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andreas.